Hey guys, my name is Sam Siassi, and I'm going to take you through a quick overhead range of motion test that you can do for yourself or for your clients before you start pressing overhead for your day's workout. It takes about 2 seconds, and then I'm going to give you some exercises to help along the way that's going to improve that range of motion and also allow you to be able to reach overhead and therefore press overhead that is safely and not really diving into the compensations. So what we're going to do today is review the overhead raise test and then go through 3 different exercises that are going to help improve your range of motion. We're going to be focusing on more or less rib cage mobility and then shoulder scapular mobility because they're all connected in one, okay? Things you want to think about when we are talking about limited overhead range of motion, it's not just focusing on the glenohumeral joint or where the humerus bone goes into the glenoid fossa, right? There's a lot more involved because that is attached to your rib cage, which is also attached to your scapula. And there could be limitations and restrictions. So for example, your scapula can maybe not have the ability to kind of upwardly rotate and glide up, which will restrict your range of motion. Or you might have a compressed front rib cage that when you raise overhead, your ribs are not able to fully kind of anterior rotate up, or your clavicle might be stuck and rotate up. So we're gonna address with the exercises all these things to help improve your range of motion that you can start adding into your warm-ups prior to the days that you're pressing. So first, let's talk about your overhead raise test. You could do this on the ground, or you can also do it standing against a wall. I personally like it against the wall just because you have some gravity that you have to fight against, and then it's also a little bit more replicable to a standing overhead press. So you're going to start with feet together, about 1 foot away from the ground, knees slightly bent, and you're going to have your hips or the back and your shoulder blades in the back of your head touch the wall. Now, it's not really significant to you have to press your lower back against the wall because that's actually dumping us into more of a posterior pelvic tilt, and it doesn't. We want a neutral spine, and doing this is going to eliminate that neutral spine and make it a little bit more straight. So it's not a true neutral posture. So it's okay to have a slight bend or a slight space in your lower back, and then also in your neck too. So from here, you're just going to straight arms, palms facing each other, reach overhead and see where you end. So my range of motion is pretty limited here. What we're looking for is be able to have your arm by your ear, because again, in a press, that's where you're ending up, okay? So you can see here in my range of motion, I'm limited and I can't really move further. If I wanted to, I can open up my rib cage, flare out, and of course, see I'll hit that range of motion, but then that's addressing the compensation. So again, we wanna maintain the integrity of a neutral torso, neutral spine, and raise our arms. And I would do this 3 times through, just to make sure you're hitting that range. Okay, so you definitely can see here a limitation. So I'm gonna take you through a couple different exercises to address those limitations. And honestly, I recommend doing a test retest. So what that means is do an exercise, then go ahead and retest real quick so you can kind of get an idea of where the restriction could be happening. And I'll explain a little bit more in that. So the first exercise, we're going to focus on posterior rib cage expansion. A lot of the times when we have restricted overhead range of motion, it could be related to our scapula is not able to glide up along the rib cage. A lot of times that can happen is our rib cage is compressed, right? So basically the back is flattened. And sometimes if you do a postural assessment, you can see that as well. So if we have a flat rib cage and is not able to expand, that scapula or shoulder blade is going to have a really hard time gliding up, and you need them to glide when you're going overhead. So this is a great way to get the shoulder blades out of the way and then work on expanding in the rib cage. All you need is a foam roller. I like a softer one, and you're going to press that foam roller right underneath your ribs here. So these are your anterior lower ribs, and you're going to press it. So ladies, right underneath the bra line. All right, so you're gonna allow that press here and you're just gonna melt into that foam roller, okay? Causing a nice curvature of the spine and just sinking into that foam roller. Make sure you feel comfortable here. And basically what that foam roller is doing is it's blocking any type of expansion trying to go through the front of the rib cage and redirecting air to the back. So you're gonna lay here. You're gonna take a nice deep breath in And think about expanding that back rib cage. And then exhale, melt into that foam roller even more. Deep breath in. Expand the back of that rib cage. Exhale, melt into that floor. You can add a little bit more to this by pressing your elbows into the ground as you inhale. And then exhale. And what that does is it helps facilitate more scapular protraction, hence getting the scap out of the way so the rib cage in the back is able to expand on your inhale. I recommend doing this for about 5 to 6 breaths, resetting, and then going to the wall and retesting. If you notice a improvement in your range of motion, that kind of gives you information that maybe you need a little bit more ribcage expansion in the back, okay? If not improves, we're gonna go to the next exercise to see if this helps you. All right, so I love this exercise. I call it a 2-for-1, because you're essentially getting 2 added benefits for 1 exercise. We're gonna be working on some lateral rib cage expansion as well as some rib cage anterior expansion, okay? So all you need is, again, a foam roller and now a light kettlebell, okay? So the kettlebell is gonna go, one arm, you're gonna press overhead. From here, you're gonna lay on the side rib cage and you're gonna again melt into that, causing a nice curve on the bottom rib cage and then a nice opening on the top of my rib cage. My other arm comes kind of like rests as a pillow here. All you're doing is just taking some breaths, breathing into the open rib cage and open chest here. So in the video is going to be my left lateral rib cage and my left anterior rib cage here. Some would say this would be like a modified armbar, but I wouldn't say it's anything modified, honestly. It's just like a different variation that just kind of really focuses on expansion on the left side and then compression on the right side because we're compressing into that foam roller. So again, let's do about 5 to 6 breaths here, focusing on breathing air into the left rib cage and then the front of the left rib cage here. One thing to note, it's important that the alignment and setup of your knees are stacked. You don't want one knee over the other. For the purpose of this exercise, I want you to be pretty neutral here. There's other exercises that you can do that works on like pelvic, positioning and movement, but for the simplicity of just hitting this, I think it's good just to stay here. And then relax out of that. So after your 5 to 6 breaths, you're gonna come out of that, bringing the bell back to a rack position and then sitting up here. Again, you're gonna do that on the other side as well, and then go ahead and retest to see if you notice any differences in your range of motion. All right, for the last exercise, all you're gonna need is a band laying on the mat. I'm gonna use this little mat here just to help maintain the natural curvature of my cervical spine. So I'm gonna lay it down here. The bottom of the band is gonna go underneath your foot, and that's just gonna kind of place it down on the ground, anchoring it. And then I'm gonna take my palm up and put it underneath here, okay? So the exercise is solely gonna be focusing on my right side, and then you do the same on the other. So laying here, again, we're finding a neutral spine, meaning that we have a nice little curvature in our back, and we're engaging by pressing our feet into the ground. From here, we're gonna keep our front of our rib cage down. You can keep your hands here, just a reminder, while you're going overhead. Okay, so you're actively going to press overhead as you exhale, keeping this rib cage down, and then bring it back with control. Because naturally, what usually was going to happen is when you come up, you're going to flare and bring that rib cage up. But again, we want to maintain that neutral pelvis or that neutral rib cage down. Almost think about bringing ribs down to your hips while you're reaching overhead. And then back and forth here. Again, hit about 5 to 6 reps and then complete on the other side. So I know I said I'm going to do 3 exercises, but here's a bonus exercise I find to be very valuable if you are really muscle bound and have tight lats. So we call this the prayer stretch, where you don't need a bench. You're going to come down into a kneeling position, and your elbows are going to be on the bench, hands clasped together like you're praying. And then from here, you're gonna let your head and your chest kind of sink in between your arms, allowing your spine to curve here, okay? And if you need more space to come down, feel free to widen your legs, and you're just gonna come on and let your sink, almost like your forehead is touching the ground or touching the bench. If you're tight, you can be fine here. If you need a little bit more range of motion, you can go ahead and sit back and sink into that here. Now, what's really important is not allowing, again, your rib cage to flare up here, because that's kind of defeating the purpose of the lat stretch. That lat muscle is attached to your spine down here. So if you want more of a stretch, if you tuck under, that's going to shorten those fibers to, again, get more of that stretch here. So you're going to go ahead and breathe and sink. And I like to inhale, and then on the exhale, melt further into that stretch. Inhale, exhale, further into that stretch. And again, hit 5 to 6 breaths here, and then go ahead back to the drawing board and testing your range of motion. So this is so cool. So just to show you guys the big changes that happens with just these exercises, just by filming and doing one set of each, 5 to 6 breaths, by showing you guys, you can see the immediate improvement of my range of motion here. So you can notice that my arms are a little bit closer to my ears. They're not fully there, but they are definitely closer than when we started filming the beginning of this video. And that's really cool because I only did one set of each. So imagine doing multiple sets a couple times a week. You're gonna have that amazing range of motion overhead to press. And that's really gonna help not only your time and work at the gym, but also when you're just going day to day and improving your posture. Make sure you save this video and try out these exercises next time you're about to lift. I recommend doing it in the warm-up section or in between your lifts in the main work when you're doing overhead pressing. And make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to be putting out a lot more education videos for you just to help you understand how your body works and how we can work with your body that you have to make sure that you are living your best life.